Welcome to Windsor Teaches Latin Literature. Today we're going to look at Horace and his Ode 3.27, Omens Good and Bad, the extract from the Educas Latin Literature, Magic and Superstition Anthology. So let's start with a brief overview, a summary of what the poem actually involves. First of all, it is a farewell poem, or the technical term for that would be a propempticon. We're to believe this going away poem is for Horace's former lover, a lady called Galatea, who is making her journey possibly to Brundisium to start a new life in Greece. As for the rest of the context, we're not entirely sure of many other details. Horace throughout the poem tracks Galatea's journey. She goes down near the area of Lanuvium and through some swamps down the Appian Way, and so we can roughly figure out where she is headed to, and we think it is Brundisium on the heel of the boot of Italy. All along her journey, though, Horace talks about potential negative omens that she may encounter, which include the owl, a dog, a wolf, a fox, and a snake. He tracks her journey through the swamps, the gloomy surroundings for gloomy omens. However, he takes on the role of an augur in his poem, where he tries to take the swerve off the negative omens by sending out his own positive ones. Later on, towards the end of the poem, he pokes one final fun bit of wit at Galatea before the extracts end, mentioning a magpie, which still has an ominous relevance today, and also a woodpecker. Of Horace, I'm going to be using a certain code to analyze some of the key quotes of what Horace says. If it's highlighted in red, it means I want to draw attention to its word order. If it's highlighted in green, I want to draw attention to its content or its use of vocabulary. If it's highlighted in blue, I want to draw attention to the sound. And finally, if it's highlighted in purple, I want to draw attention to the literary devices that can be found. On the first line, Horace goes with this: Impios parae resinentes omen ducat, which means, let the omen of the hooting owl lead the wicked. You'll notice how the word impios, meaning the wicked plural as in more than one wicked person, has been emphatically positioned at the beginning of the line, giving the impression from the outset that Horace is going to begin by describing negative or bad omens. Another key thing to do with this word order is the let lead. The subjunctive verb has been left until the second line, despite having its action in the first. So this is an instance of enjambment. Horace then goes on to list other bad omens in keeping with this first one of the owl leading the wicked. He says, Et praegnans canis, ut ab agro rava decurrens lupa, fetaque volpes. Which means, and the pregnant dog, and the tawny wolf running down, and the pregnant fox. So the first thing we see here is a tricolon of three omens: the dog, the wolf, and the fox, all of which are of a canid variety, all of which are also female. So females were widely regarded to have a greater and stronger connection to the supernatural than men, hence why Roman stereotypes of witches are all female and usually old as well. Look at Dipsas from Ovid. Keeping in mind also that the Romans and the Greeks believed that birth and pregnancy created some sort of stain or pollution, both spiritually and physically, which they called miasma. And so they would often keep pregnant women or people about to give birth at arm's length. And that adds into the idea that these female creatures, again, are a negative omen. Another key thing is the interwoven word sequence of the rava lupa and the decurrens at this part. So coming down from Lanuvium gets us started along Galatea's journey route. So since she's going past Lanuvium, Roman readers would have roughly been able to estimate the direction in which Galatea was travelling. Furthermore, the rava, meaning tawny, and lupa, the noun that it describes, are separated. So this is an instance of hyperbaton. So after the starting of the poem on a negative note with the owl leading the wicked and his tricolon of female canid species, his omens really reach a crescendo with this line: Rumpat et serpens ites institutum si per obliquum similis sagittae teruit manos. Which means, let the snake interrupt the started journey. If coming sideways like an arrow, it scares the horses. Another key thing to note here is that there's the emphatic position of the verb rumpat, meaning let, interrupt. We've also got a case of sibilance with the serpens, si similis sagittae, the spooky serpentine sibilance of these words that begin with S, add to the kind of audiovisual metaphor that Horace is giving us here. Perhaps I'm being fanciful with this next point. Perhaps the sibilance of the S's is counterpointed by the rhythmic T of iter institutum to counterpoint the sibilance of the S's. Next, ego qui timebo providus auspex, which means, for the person I worry about, I, a far-sighted augur. It's the first mention of Horace himself in this poem. He's mentioned a lot of negative omens that could potentially disrupt the journey of or harm anyone on their way travelling on these roads. Of course, Galatea, this is how we know Galatea is dear to him, he now takes on the role of an augur in order so that he can dispel the negative omens by providing his own positive one. He refers to himself as a providus auspex. He figuratively takes on the role of an augur in the poem despite having no religious training. The idea of the auspex being providus seems a little bit redundant here, being a far-sighted augur, since augurs by nature were far-sighted anyway, but I think this serves to exaggerate and emphasize the sight that Horace wants to have in protecting Galatea from these negative omens. So this is all mounting up to his own crescendo in the next few lines, taking on the role of a providus auspex, antequam stantes repeta paludes imbrim divina avis imminentum, which means, before the bird that predicts impending rainstorms can get back to the stagnant marshes. So some writers, including Cicero, indicate that the birds whose habitats were swamps or places with bodies of water, if they started splashing around in the water, that meant that there was rain or rainstorms impending, similar to the way in the UK that we say the same thing when we see cows sitting down in the field. Now, what you will notice is that stantes, the standing, or in this context, stagnant, is separated from the noun that it describes. It's paludes, it's swamps. So an instance of hyperbaton. We have a second hyperbaton with imminentum being separated from the noun it describes, imbrium, meaning rainstorms, another hyperbaton there. Also, the sort of rhyming, although not really sort of half rhyme between imbrium and imminentum, will heighten the effect of drama in these next few lines. So Horace, being a far-sighted augur, and before the bird that predicts impending rainstorms can get back to the stagnant marshes, his solution is as follows: Oscinem corvum preces suscitabo solis ab ortu, which means, I will conjure up the prophetic crow from the rising sun, or from the east. And so all of these lines have been mounting up to his own crescendo where he's listed the negative omens, and before this other omen can take place, this one that has impending rainstorms, he is going to dispel the rest of the negative omens that may affect Galatea on her way by conjuring up his own omen, which is his crow from the east. So in here we've got some things to do with sound. We've got the k in oscinem and corvum and suscitabo. It's the repetition of the k sound in oscinem and corvum, which to my mind sounds like mimicking the cawing of a crow. Also, from the rising sun, the east was good luck, and so we know that Horace is developing his own omen in a positive way in order to help Galatea along her journey to dispel any negative omens that she may encounter. So in having done his job as the far-sighted augur and predicting rainstorms and negating those rainstorms with his own positive omen so that Galatea has her own uneventful journey to wherever she's going, Horace moves into his final thoughts about Galatea in this extract. He says, "Sis licet felix ubicumque mavis e memo nostri Galatea," which means, "May you be happy, Galatea, wherever you prefer to go, and remember me." So we use the subjunctive, "sis licet," so expresses a wish, may you be happy. So again, showing that Horace is fond of this person. The poetic use of nostri, he really means me, singular, himself, but he uses the poetic nostri instead to refer to we, but really he just means himself. And for the first time in the poem, we actually get the mention of the woman's name. And so we come to the last line of the extract, where Horace says, "Teque nec laevus vetet ire picus nec vaga cornix," which means, "And may neither an ill-omened woodpecker nor a wandering magpie prevent the journey," or literally, prevent you going. So the final line of this extract could be seen as a sort of snide aside to Galatea in a sort of friendly, fond tone, what we think is poking fun at her already established superstitious nature. So while Horace has offered a heartfelt goodbye to Galatea, he gets in there with one final joke with this line, "May neither an ill-omened woodpecker or a magpie prevent your journey." Magpies often still of relevance to us today in Britain, and there's a certain superstition still attached to magpies. And just seeing one on the road would have been ambiguous to any Roman traveller. So there's a couple of things here. So te, the fact that he's put te meaning you right at the beginning of this means emphatic position, and he placed it at the beginning of the line to counterpoint Galatea's luck, her good luck, with the poor fortunes of the wicked who we heard about in the first line of this extract. We also have nec and nec, meaning neither and nor, and so again is an emphatic negative to counterpoint Galatea's good luck and the bad luck of other people travelling. So we know that Galatea has had good luck in comparison because Horace has been there to dispel the bad luck omens by sending out his own good luck omen. So the question remains, we've read Horace's excerpt from Ode 3.27 in this video, but what is the overall message? We know that Horace has written a farewell poem. We know that potentially this woman Galatea is his former love. We know that Horace is worried for this woman as she travels down a possibly well-established travel route towards the nearest seaport to emigrate to another country, potentially Greece. And so we know that Horace is speaking fondly of this woman due to the tone of the poem. And in order to try and make sure that she has a pleasant journey that is without incident, he takes on the role of a priest of the gods himself to send out his own positive omen. I think despite this piece being comedic in tone and amusing and not at all as serious as other pieces of poetry we've seen in this anthology so far, I think we still do have to believe that Horace himself is serious about omens. If he weren't serious about omens, then why would he take on the figurative role of an augur in order to dispel the bad omens that Galatea might encounter on her journey? Had he not believed in omens and superstition, he might have done nothing instead. And so the fact that he puts himself as an intermediary between the gods and man means that perhaps he is trying to grasp back some control from the supernatural by subverting the norms of allowing omens to happen, taking fate into his own hands and manipulating superstition and magic in order to have a favourable outcome. So I think we do believe that Horace is serious about omens. However, I do think there is something quite human about the way Horace is writing here. As a species, we want to step out and take control of our surroundings and our fates and our destiny by involving ourselves here in the supernatural. But ultimately, despite how he might be serious about superstition and in this poem taking on that power himself, I think Horace and humankind as a whole have to admit that they are not able to shape their own destiny.